Imagine this. A racist officer thinks he's got the power to intimidate a woman in the highest ranks of the FBI, threatening to make her disappear. But what he doesn't know will shock you. She's not just any woman, she runs the FBI. What happens next will leave you speechless. Stay tuned to find out how she turns the tables and teaches him a lesson he'll never forget. The tension in the air was thick as two figures faced each other in the heart of Washington, D.C., inside one of the nation's most prestigious government buildings. Marble floors gleamed under the bright lights, casting long shadows on the walls. A woman stood confidently, pointing directly at the officer who towered over her, his posture arrogant and dismissive. "You're making a mistake, lady," the officer scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. His words were sharp, cutting through the thick silence of the room. He wore the dark blue uniform of the FBI, but his demeanor suggested he thought he was untouchable. He was used to calling the shots, used to getting what he wanted. He had power, he had authority, and that's how he believed the world worked. But the woman standing before him, poised and calm, wasn't intimidated. In fact, she was about to turn the tables in a way he would never have expected. "You don't scare me," she said, her finger aimed directly at his chest. "And I don't think you understand who I am." Her words hung in the air, and for a split second, the officer's smug expression faltered. But he quickly regained his composure. He didn't recognize her. She wasn't dressed in the traditional uniform of an officer. She wore a sleek, light-colored business suit, her natural hair neatly styled into a tight bun. She looked like another bureaucrat, another figure in a sea of suits and ties. But that was the mistake he made. He underestimated her. The officer, convinced that she was just another official with no real power, leaned in and said, "You don't belong here. Maybe you should just disappear." Her eyes narrowed, and there was no mistaking the intensity in her gaze. She had heard these kinds of words before, many times. Words meant to belittle her, to push her down, to remind her that people like her didn't belong in spaces like this one. But she wasn't just any woman. She wasn't just another person in a suit. She wasn't a victim of the system. She ran the system. Her calm demeanor never faltered as she replied, her voice steady and clear. "I'm not the one who will disappear today. But let me remind you of who I am. I'm the one who makes people disappear, not you." The officer's smirk faded instantly. He stood frozen, as if trying to process her words. He couldn't have known who she was. He couldn't have known that the woman in front of him wasn't just a random official. She was the head of the FBI, a woman who had spent years climbing the ranks in a world designed to exclude people like her. A black woman in a space where people like him thought they control everything. The officer took a step back, now visibly unsure of himself. He had no idea who he was dealing with. In that moment, she wasn't just a woman standing in front of him. She was the embodiment of justice, of resilience, and of everything he had failed to understand. As the tension in the room thickened, a few bystanders in the background began to notice the exchange. Phones came out, cameras flashed, and whispers spread like wildfire. This wasn't just a confrontation between two people. It was a defining moment, a moment that could shift the power dynamics forever. The officer, now desperate to save face, tried to regain control. He laughed nervously, trying to pass it off as a joke. "You're crazy if you think you can just walk in here and tell me what to do." But she didn't laugh. She didn't flinch. She simply stood there, resolute, her eyes never leaving his. "Let me explain something to you," she said, her voice low but filled with authority. "I don't answer to you. I'm the director of the FBI. I run this agency, and you'll do well to remember that. Now, I suggest you step aside." The officer's smug attitude vanished completely. His body language shifted as he realized the truth. He had misjudged her completely. He had assumed that just because she wasn't wearing a uniform, just because she was a black woman in a world dominated by white men, she didn't belong. But she had been fighting her entire life for the space she had earned. Every step she took toward the top of the FBI had been met with resistance, with discrimination, with racism. And yet, here she was, standing in front of him with the kind of power he couldn't even fathom. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to respond. In that moment, she had taken the reins of the situation, and he had no choice but to step aside. The room was silent for a few moments, as if the walls themselves were taking in the weight of the moment. It wasn't just about this one officer or this one exchange, it was about something much bigger. It was about the system, the power structures, and the people who tried to push others down because they didn't fit their narrow definition of what belonged. She knew the system wasn't perfect. She had seen firsthand how it favored some people and oppressed others. She had watched men like this officer climb the ranks, using their privilege to push aside those who didn't look like them. But she had learned one thing over the years: power didn't come from titles. It didn't come from the color of your skin or the uniform you wore. Power came from within. Power came from the ability to stand up for yourself, no matter how hard it was, no matter how many times you had to fight. And that's exactly what she had done. With a calm but resolute step, she turned and walked away from the officer, her head held high. As she did, the whispers in the room continued, but she didn't care. She had made her point. She had made her point. She had taken control. And she had shown that no one, not even a racist officer in the FBI, could take that away from her. In the end, the officer had no choice but to watch as the woman who ran the FBI walked away, leaving him standing there with the realization that he had just encountered someone who was far more powerful than he could ever imagine. The story of this confrontation would go down in history as one of the most defining moments in the FBI's history, not because of the officer's arrogance, but because of the woman who had the courage to face it head-on. She had not only reclaimed her power, but she had shown that the system could be changed, one step at a time. And as the crowd of onlookers watched her leave, they knew one thing for sure: this woman who had been underestimated and dismissed was unstoppable. She would continue to fight for justice, no matter what. She would make sure of it. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, smash that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Don't miss out on the next shocking twist. We've got even more insane stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes open for what's about to unfold.